Good morning, good morning, good morning, and welcome to another episode of On the Couch with Creatives. I say good morning because I'm here in the UK, but good afternoon or good evening if you're anywhere else in the world. I'm Melanie Perry.
And I'm Julie Hyde-Mew.
And this is On the Couch with Creatives. Fans and followers of the show will know that we're part of the Creatives Group, the private network for creative professionals across the globe. Together, we support you so that you can create at your best, connect with like-minded professionals, and therefore grow your creative business. If that sounds good to you and you'd like to find out more about joining our growing network of creative professionals, please don't hesitate to get in contact with us after the show. But this is On the Couch. So Julie, who do we have on the couch today?
On the couch today, we have photographer Julian Knopf. And he started off with a degree in computer science and worked for leading international investment banks in a variety of roles around the world. And then he hit his 40s and totally flipped out. He turned his photography hobby into a full-time business. And his true calling lies in capturing the meaning in the beauty of the human body. In other words, erotic art photography. His work has been exhibited around the world and appeared in numerous publications. So let's get him on the couch, Melanie. Hello, Julian. Thank you for joining us on the couch.
Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever anybody is. Lovely to be here.
Lovely to have you.
Well, Melanie is very interested in what you do. So hopefully you will persuade her to model for you by the end of this chat.
Fingers crossed. Let's see what happens. You can always come along, Julie, as well. It's not.
I'll come along and direct.
Is that your role? Is it okay?
So let's kick off with exactly what you do. How would you describe a particular specialization in photography?
It's a very interesting question and one that's quite reasonably hard to directly answer, because really I'm about artistic photography of the human form, and doing everything I can to honor that and show it in whole new lights and kind of shatter and break some of those illusions that come along of people saying, I couldn't possibly be in front of a camera because insert flimsy excuse here. I'm not looking at anybody in particular, but everyone's like, I'm not a model, I'm not this size, I'm not this shape, and that's kind of grown from the history of the photography that I've taken, and now I've become far more artistic, and intentionally artistic rather than kind of it happens in a byproduct of the photography that I do. And really, my hope is that we can normalize some of the ideas of what erotica means and get it up on people's walls and make people really appreciate and understand that art is art, the human body is a wonderful thing, and we can make those things come together to produce just amazing pieces of work that should be as acceptable as anything else.
I had a friend who was a very large lady, and she decided to have boudoir photographs taken of her. And I looked at her and I said, are you kidding me? I mean, she was huge. And you don't imagine large people, obese people, wanting to pose for nude photographs or nearly nude photographs. And she showed me them. They were the most stunning images I had ever seen of her. They were beautiful, absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, it's a strange thing in as much that we're kind of channeled in this is the vision of what we should be. It's that rule breaking kind of concept, isn't it? I have to be a size this, I have to be an age that, I have to wear these things to be able to stand in front of a camera. Or people who are not in those walls go, I don't deserve to be here. What have I got to celebrate about myself? And as a boudoir photographer, over the last 7 or 8 years, I've shot well over 100 women. Many of them have been back more than once. A lot of them have got a history and a backstory from relationship abuse backgrounds, from ex-anorexics. I've had clients with alopecia who I covered in glitter. I've had, I think my oldest client was 73, and my youngest was 19. So, the whole range of everybody that's in there. And really, every boudoir shoot starts with a conversation. And that conversation is for a lot of people who go, "Oh, you're a photographer. I could never do that." And I go, "Bet you can." And then we go through the whole conversation about what is it you think you can't have and why can't you have it, and let's celebrate you. And that, I did that still do for the last, like I say, 7, 8, 9 years. And that has evolved into becoming more and more artistic and working with an art partner to be really artistic to get, the art on the walls rather than just people who are celebrating themselves.
Mm. I can imagine, and say from my point of view, I hate going on camera. I detest it. I loathe it, and I can't imagine anything worse than having a set of photographs done of myself. To be quite, I'm going to be brutally honest here, and I think over time, things happen, and especially for women, menopause and all of this shit just happens, and you suddenly just explode, and you don't recognize yourself, not only in your own body but in your mind, because your mind's kind of scrambled as well. And it's kind of like, why is it, when I die and whatever being is up there that's controlling all this stuff, I think my biggest question is going to be, why do women have to put up with all this bloody shit? And when you feel like a certain way, it's a shame, to my point, that people have to feel or be reconditioned to feel that they need to be in love and comfortable with themselves. It would be lovely if just menopause and middle age spread and all that kind of crappiness just didn't happen. I'd be a lot happier if it just didn't happen.
Yeah, but that's in a perfect world, Melanie.
Well, wouldn't it be great? But it does, yeah. And it's no different for men. Let me tell you, right? Suddenly we go through a second. Guys go through menopause. We have a second puberty. We get whiskers coming out of our ears like we're going to get caught.
And your nose.
And other places where hair shouldn't, and eyebrows and all this stuff. And then we start to look like our parents even more than, put me and my father in the same room, like little Russian dolls. It happens, and we go through that, and suddenly it becomes a lot harder. As we know, and as we say, I think I'm fairly safe in saying we're all of a certain age. It gets harder to lose the weight. It gets harder to do the things. All the stuff that is that. And actually, so what? My boudoir photography branding is called The Way You Are, not the way you were, not the way you'd like to be, not the way you think you ought to be, the way you are. Because that's exactly what you're celebrating when you come and have a boudoir session.
And why do you
and so many people will turn around to me and go, "Oh, I hate being in front of the camera." Sorry, Melanie, I didn't catch that.
Why do you think? I mean, I think probably it's the media has got a large role to play in this, because we have, as you say, what I think I should be. We've been conditioned through the ages, especially through mediums of newspaper and models and fashion magazines, is that you're less than you are if you don't look like this. And we don't appreciate that a lot of those images have been airbrushed, especially in the early days. I mean, they're trying to veer away from it now. But, in those days where you were given that perfection of what female and male perfection is, it wasn't, because it was all artistically created and airbrushed and shaded, and the image that went out on the front of Vogue or whatever really didn't bear any resemblance to what the model looked like if she was just walking down the street. But we've got this in our heads now that we should be perfect people. We need to be the perfect parents, we need to have the perfect figure, and we need to be active, we need to do this, and if we're not any of those things, then we're failing on an epic level. I think there'll be people that kind of disagree with that.
Yeah, and we're actually, you're right, but we're starting to see a backlash with that, because the media controlled everything for so long. The imagery, the branding, the everything. Vogue was this. Insert magazine title here. Television programs. Sex in the City was making people, dress in a certain way and have the four types of women within there. And we all had a hoot watching it. It was great, right? And actually, if you go down a generation, so I have, 20-year-olds who are my wonderful children, but they're exposed to a different kind of reality, because they've got TikTok and Instagram and all the things where people have started going, this is my life, warts and all. And also brands are starting to embrace that. And they went too far, and like all these things are, they overreact and then come back. But if you, for instance, if you're on the kind of person who buys their shopping online and buys lingerie online, then a brand who I shall not mention unless we don't mind mentioning names, but they're very big in using model-sized people, plus proper plus-size, real sorry, falling out my teeth, size people, but also they have lingerie models who are amputees or stuff like that. So there's a lot of acceptance in all those things that are coming in this way, that actually when you skip down a generation from us, and we're kind of a bit more blinkered because we lived in the 80s, we lived with the supermodels who famously said, I won't get out of bed for less than £10,000, right? I wouldn't get out of bed for less than 10. I don't have that choice. But and so that's, now we have a bit more of a realistic tinge, and we have influencers who are real, and influencers who are the voice of their people. So alopecia influencers or plus size or whatever you have, and that normalization is really creeping through. And interestingly, that means the people who stand and come for a session, come for a photography session for that, younger people, whilst they still have hang-ups, are addressing them better.
And we all know about the filters and the photoshopping now and the airbrushing. So when we look at somebody and they're absolutely beautiful, and well, they've obviously been airbrushed, because nobody is that beautiful naturally. But you obviously pull out the natural beauty of your subject.
Yeah, I have. Well, it's a really interesting thing. As I'm skipping into being an art photographer from being a boudoir and an event photographer, I have a no Photoshop policy. Now, that's a very broad statement, and that is very much, look, back in the old days when we took pictures on film with negatives, if we can remember that far back, photos went to a dark room, they were cropped, they were contrasted, there's a photographic element. You have to do that with every photograph that comes through your door. Okay. I'm also going to be kind to you in Photoshop land and say, look, if you've got a pimple on the end of your nose that doesn't belong there, I'll get rid of that, right? Because it's not your fault, and all those things. So my makeup team are great at, those things going on. But anything that's you, that stays there and should be there, remains. And that, I can pose you for your shape beautifully. I can light you to, take aware the facts of things, the things you like and dislike, all of those things. But now, as I move into art photography and sensual art photography, I've got more latitude, because as an artist, you can be that way. When you draw, and I can't draw a straight line with a ruler, which always aggrieves me because I come from a very artistic family, right? But when you draw, you can interpret, you can choose, you can do so many things that, and that's probably why I couldn't be an artist, because I was always looking for the photographic drawing rather than, Picasso didn't draw what he's, Dali didn't, all those people drew what they interpreted and saw in their minds and put it on a piece of paper. And so I do give myself that latitude. I'm just starting to learn that now as I become more and more into the artistic world of going, what can I do with these things? I still want to be honest. I still want to be true to what's in front of me. Obviously, you can look at a digitally enhanced image and go, that's a digital piece of art. It's not a photograph. What I don't want to do is produce photos that have been so over edited and so over retouched that it still looks like it's the real thing, but really isn't. And if we met you walking down the street, you'd go, that's Nevi. What's that about? And that's where there's always this fine line of trying to keep the honesty running.
Yeah, because art is all about interpretation, and true artists, if I think Stephen Colgan, who was on the show a while back, said, you could put a group of 10 people in a room and ask them to paint something that they see, or paint an object, and none of them will paint the same thing. It'll be the one object, but none of the paintings will be the same, because everybody has their own artistic interpretation of what's beautiful, and what, there is no right or wrong in art. So people who do want to create digital creations and stuff, that's fine. It's just another art form. But tell us about how you kind of create art in your studio, because I'm quite anxious to hear about, well, not anxious, I'm quite excited to hear about the glitter. I like glitter. I think I could handle glitter. If you said there was going to be glitter and sparkles and jewels and colours and things, and I might be tempted to set foot in your studio.
Well, my studio, well, up until just about not even 9 months ago, my studio was my home. And I used to berate myself, how can I have a studio that's a home and give a professional experience? But all my furniture is modular in as much that I can shift it out of one room, put it in another. And any piece of work you look at of mine that obviously isn't taken on location, you can tell, it was taken in my lounge. And I argued with myself for many times going, if I can take work like that here, then I don't need to move anywhere and do all these things. But really, it's about relationship establishment and getting to know who you are and what you're trying to be and what you're trying to do. So a boudoir session is very much a collaborative experience where we sit, we talk, and you go, okay, you want to have pictures done, that's great. I love that as an idea. But what I don't do is I don't have you in for 90 minutes, give you the same 25 pictures everybody else has got, and then you walk away. Nothing can be worse to me for you going, ladies, look, you go down and I don't know where you might meet up with your friends and go, I had my pictures done. I go, yeah, I got the same ones, right? Okay, so I need to make it unique, and I need to establish what you're here for and why are you here and what's the thing. And find that certain particular thing that is about you that I can really tease out and play on and go, right, why? What are you? A lot of people don't know why. I can tell you why they're coming, but they've got that penny has to drop. They have to understand what they're here for, because that gives them a whole set. It's very character driven, isn't it? Standing in front of a camera. And I've always said women have got a better character set than men have, because they have a whole industry of things that they can choose to wear and be and do to be able to personify that. And that's what I'm doing, is I'm teasing that out of people to go, right, what's your picture, what do you do, along with let's find some influencing images. So every shoot that I have, we have secret Pinterest boards. And he goes, oh, I can't possibly, right? Just throw. And I say, look, we're adults, okay? Anything goes. We know what that means in the real world, but we put it on a board, and then we talk about it. And then I can throw equally. That means I can put something there that I think might challenge you, and you can turn around and say, no, never in a million years, and vice versa. And that starts to drop people's fears away. And then you get groupings about, is it going to be light and dark? Is it going to be this kind of outfit, this kind of thing? And come the day, you get here at 10 o'clock in the morning, you leave at about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, you wonder how it's going to take 6 hours. And you think you're like, crikey, we're running out of time. What are we going to do? This time last year, I was halfway through a 3-day shoot with one particular person because they pinned over 1,000 images. We had to stage a pintervention, go, right, whoa, let's stop, let's bring it back, let's see where we can go, and let's take it on. So the art is very much about interpretation. It's about pushing your limits, because I don't want anybody to go, oh, I wish I was only brave enough to do X, Y, and Z as well. It's a bit like, and I've never bungee jumped, I've never jumped out of a plane, right? But most people, I'm sure, because we've all heard people say, I was terrified when I was up there, but once I got on the ground, I'm like, can I go again, please? Because that was blooming great. And you've got to cram all of that into a single day and go through the therapeutic part of what this is all about as well. There's a massive amount of therapy that goes through having, sensual photography sessions.
I'm sure, because even our mutual friend Brigitte Skolsmasriani, she's a branding photographer, a member of Creative, and she always says her photographic sessions are therapeutic. So I can imagine if you are specializing in boudoir photography or sensual art, they would be even more so, because you're literally stripping somebody bare. Not that do they take everything off? Or?
Oh God, yeah. And those that protest us the most are the ones who get naked the quickest, right? So most people go, oh, I'm not again. Yeah, right. But yeah, so I used to pace shoots like that with, working up to doing the nude stuff and seeing where we'd go. And, I've always said to everybody, we've planned it, but you've always got the right to wave a white flag. And it's also worth saying that, we're not alone. I have hair makeup here with me. You know, they're here to help you out throughout the day. Most of my makeup girls I can grunt at and they know what I'm saying, so it's great for that as well, and they help you out and do various stuff. These days we actually start with a lingerie and a white shirt, and you get naked within about half an hour, pretty quick, you know, because once it's done, and it's not hanging over you, and there's no fear of it. And then you can start to relax through this whole thing. It's a bit like, you know, I don't know, maybe diving off high boards, isn't it? Starting off the 2 meter, the 5 meter, and there's the 10 meter. Oh my God, if you did it first, then it's done, isn't it? And then you can start to enjoy the day. So, you know, those are the things. And it is, you know, look, I've known Brigitte, I call her B. She says I'm her brother. But I've known her for 5-6 years. I've done branding headshots of her as well. And we've, you know, the therapy that happens whilst we take photos, because you may guess, I like to talk quite a lot. And so a lot of things come up whilst we're having those conversations. Oh, what we're about. And people need to recognize that, you know, when it comes to sort of, you know, you would have a good day out, wouldn't you? You'd go and have a spa weekend. You'd go and, you know, go shopping with the girls. You would go and get your nails done. Photography needs to be seen as that as well. And, you know, I've always said I want my photos to be a memory of a great day out, much like your holiday snaps or your wedding pictures or whatever it might be. You're here to have a great time. Photos are a byproduct of that. And that's kind of what's, you know, if I'm having a good time, then we're all having a good time. That's as important.
You photograph men as well?
I have photographed men. I've done couples. Men are much harder to find to shoot. I'll admit that. Done a few. To be fair, the ones that most of what I've done have been, you know, coming back to body types and, you know, bodybuilders and people who have got great curves and great things that you can kind of cut light with, you know. But yeah, I'd love to shoot more men, because I think men need this as we've grown up and got older. The stereotypes that our children see are, you know, they're perfect athletes. You know, I grew up with, well, it was either Schwarzenegger or Stallone who were so muscle bound that you knew that wasn't attainable. And most of the footballers were kind of fit and healthy, but they weren't the prime examples. You know, the best thing we probably had to look at was Peter Andre, as far as, yeah, you've got a body, mate. But you're right. And now we've got Love Island, and every footballer is a racehorse. You know, they're you know, everything. You know, every pop star in a band is. You know, we had Take That, and these guys, I don't even know who they are, but you know, they're fine physical athletes, aren't they? All these people, and so the boys, the men of the new generation, have such, you know, are probably a generation behind from where we started this conversation about female body types and everything else. I think the boys are probably going through it now, and they will come around to be a bit better sooner and accept that anybody can be anything. And boys have such a variety of shapes and sizes. But yeah, I'd love to shoot more men, without doubt.
Yeah, I can imagine, because you don't think of men thinking of themselves in that way, but men, I'm sure a lot of men out there do have body issues. You know, that seemed to be quite a female thing. But I mean, I have heard some stories, very, very sad stories of teenage boys killing themselves because, you know, they couldn't conform to what they should be in society, and it's dreadful.
It's a huge amount of pressure, isn't it? You know, it's all about, you know, having, you know, big guns and all this kind of thing. And actually, you know, there's a lot of commitment to getting a body type like that. And if you're a young teenage, you know, you've got so many other commitments in life. You know, you've got to, you know, study hard. You've got to do, you know, all so much everything else. You know, if all you do is be, you know, in the public eye, and you've got a personal chef, and you've got a personal trainer, and somebody can look after you and do all those things, and of course you can be absolutely perfect on screen, right? Because that, you know, you are your brand, you are your image. And we're old enough to kind of digest that and go, I can't attain that, but hey, I'm quite happily lose a bit of weight. I mean, I went through it a couple of 3-4 years ago. So I put a stack of weight back on, and I thought I've had enough of this now, and I lost 10 kilos. A bit of a backstory is I had 3 major back surgeries in my 30s that brought me into realizing my life and being in my 40s and going, I've had enough of what I was doing to doing this. So I kind of have a bit different outlook on life to other people as well. But we all go through the that body change shape, that thing that goes, oh, I've had enough of this now. It's either, I'm either going to break beyond the 34, 36-inch waist, or I'm going to get a hold of it now and eat a bit more salad and be a bit more healthy and do stuff. And actually, I walked into a room of people that I hadn't seen for about 3 or 4 years recently. And it took a lot of them to even recognize who I was, because I've grown my hair and I've lost 2 stone and all the stuff that is. So yeah, it doesn't go away just because you're in your 50s, no doubt.
So what would your 3 top tips be for photographers like yourself specializing in such photography, dealing with people and their body issues?
I think the general tip of everything is always, especially for artists, is you don't be beholden to rules. Don't be beholden. We are creatives. And if you're creating with other people, then listen to what they've got, take their input, and ask yourself why, what if, should I do it here, should I do it there? What happens if I take this lens and that camera situation, or just because that's not how it happened before, or you don't think that's right, just experiment a lot to get where you are. We all know that saying, it takes 10,000 hours to learn how to do anything. Pretty true, isn't it? Right? You've got to be at a point where your equipment, and top tip number 2, I guess, is that your equipment is your friend. It's your, clicking around. It's like a PlayStation remote in your hand. When I'm shooting events, people, there's always a hobbyist photographer in the room going, so what are your settings? And I go, got a clue. I just walk into the room and I've got my base settings. I'm clicking around and doing stuff, and then we'll go from this scenario to that scenario. I don't know, from dancing to speeches or something, and I'll go, right, let's reset the camera, and I'll go, how did I even get to that? But it's kind of intuitive. What you don't want to do is you don't want to break the magic, the relationship you're having with the person that you're shooting, by going, oh, just give me a minute to change all my fiddles and dials and do stuff, and you've lost the moment. Yeah, there's always breaks where you're resetting stuff and doing bits and pieces, but yeah. Top 3 tips then: learn the rules, break them. Don't be afraid to just try stuff and see what happens. Really establish a relationship with your clients so that you know what they're up to, why they're having a photo shoot, and understand that, and really bring that out and push those fears out of the way. And don't be beholden to anything that is just because that's how industry thinks you should do something. Yeah, we're here to forge those ways through. Cubism wasn't Cubism until somebody painted like that. Jackson Pollock throwing paint on a floor, or photographers, David Bailey or whoever. It's just be creative.
Yeah, just try it, just do it. I mean, again, Stephen was talking about Picasso. When he started his sort of cubism and various things that he did, at the time there was nothing for him to compare it to, so he didn't know whether it was crap, good, or anything. There was nothing
exactly
to compare it to anyway. So
and that's and the other thing is also that, and I'm doing it now with being an artist rather than just a boudoir photographer, is I'm sat there going, what's the intention? Why am I just play around? We opened the conversation. I've actually moved into a studio. It's given me so much more space. And at the beginning, I was using it in the same way I was using my old space. And I've got all this space around me. What can I do? Why am I taking this picture? Well, and then, here's another, hey, I'll give you a bonus tip, is if you are a photographer, learn the end-to-end process. I do all my own editing, because that then gives you the opportunity to go, what can I do with this? And I've learned this so much with art now, is that what can I do with this photograph, which you could consider a sketch maybe? How do I crop it? Where do I tone it? What do I do with it in the post-process to make it come to life? And it's not always the first thing you do. I've got a bunch of pictures on the wall over here that are going to go to an exhibition. I had my selection ready to go, and then I sat down with somebody else over my shoulder, and all the stuff that I discounted, she went, they are the pictures. I went, they're rubbish. No, let's have a look. And we went through them and we cropped them differently and did other stuff. I'm like, how did I even miss this gold that I'm sitting on? So learn your end-to-end process, because you will see the benefit in that through and through.
Yeah. Brilliant tips. Brilliant tips. Okay, Julie, it's that time. It's that time. Am I doing
Right, this
it?
is the time. This is so you'll appreciate this side of Melanie, Julian, because she gets very sensual with her cards. So while she's having a good fiddle there, you are going to pick a card, and it will denote a value. And she will ask you a couple of questions, and whatever comes into your head. As you know, when it comes to the creative mind, nothing is right and nothing is wrong. So even if it sounds silly, just say it.
Nothing is silly.
I had to do this again. The last time I did this, I threw them all. I was trying to spread them out in a lovely fan. I threw them all over the floor by accident. I'm not going to do that this week. Right, okay. Okay, I'm going to run my finger along the top of the cards, and you just say stop. And I'll pick
Stop. Stop.
Right, let's have a look. What did you pick? Let's have a look. Now this, I think, considering all the things we've talked about, and especially about trust as well, for what you do, you got protection of the environment.
Ooh.
Well, I don't think that's a very good card at all if you're throwing glitter all over the place.
It's organic glitter. It's fine.
Why
Well,
does it environment, as in the world, Julie, it means the environment of the space, the protective environment of the space that the model and the artist is in, perhaps.
I think that's really interesting, right? So that's a really big thing. But what I say to a lot of people is that this studio is your playground to be what you want to be, who you want to be, without any judgment, without any question. And bring your real self and all the fears that you've got. And that environment is how often we lose all that ability, don't we, when we stop going to kindergarten and nursery and we run around with towels around our neck pretending we're Superman. And you have to protect that space. You have to protect those places for people without any fear and without any thought. And that's how I've got to taking pictures of people covered in glitter, or surprising a client with a cake smash, even though she had history with food disorders. Or I've had
you smashed a cake in her face.
She smashed it for us, but yeah, I poisoned her with cake basically. Or I've had a client who came for her third session, who was a come out of an abusive relationship. And I was talking about Pinterest boards earlier, and she started afterwards. She was adding some new images that were a little bit spicy in a bondage way. And I picked up the phone to her and said, "Is this, what's going on?" She went, "Well, should we do something else?" And I'm like, "What, you trust me that much?" And I went, "Yeah." She went, "Yeah." So she came and we did all of that as well. And actually, the environment is so important, because I did want to mention this, and I'm glad it's kind of come around with this card, is that one of the things that photographers do is they take pictures of their own family, right? Well, that's where we all start. We're all hobbyists. And then it all stops because the family have had enough and whatever. But on a personal basis, for me and for my wife has been through a breast cancer treatment, which is a very good version of what could be a very bad thing, over the last 6 months. And as part of what went on there, she allowed me to take some pictures of her, which was huge therapy for me as much as for her, and protect that environment. And that was kind of like, sometimes you realize why you have a skill set. You don't know quite why. And we've done a wonderful set of things in capturing parties for people and all those things. And some of the pictures that we have from that, and she's saying, yeah, these need to get out there and people need to see what happens in this world. Protecting an environment is wider, isn't it? It's not just the space that you're in at the time you're doing, but it's reaching out to everybody else and talking to people, going, don't be so scared of what's ahead of you. Don't be so terrified of that. Malini, don't be so scared about coming into a photo studio and having some pictures taken. We will cover you with glitter. We will have time. But that's the point, isn't it? Is that your environment can be, Julie's initial response was, we're talking about the world, right?
No, I'm an environmentalist.
Which is fine, but
God, I wish they'd banned balloons.
It's multi-layered as an answer, isn't it? Because the environment of that, the environment of going, you know, what's the space that you're in when you're.
No, I was going off topic, but glitter and balloons just I wish they were all banned. But I can understand the aesthetics of covering people like Melanie in glitter.
I like
You should do it.
I like it.
What I'm hoping is that I've kind of everybody. When I get a lot of response from people who turn around to me and they go, "So what do you do?" And I go, "I take pictures of, you know, I do boudoir photography." And they go, "What, naked?" And I go, "Well, sometimes I am, but no, they prefer it if I'm clothed." Ho ho, right? But generally, it's either that's really interesting, tell me more about it, or I could never do that. And I keep trying to bring all the people who say I could never do that into being a bit more kind of acceptant of it and go, actually, do you know what? Why couldn't I do that? What's so scary about it? And you say that, Melanie, right? But the women who've had a boudoir session who then come back to see me for headshots and corporate stuff are like, God, headshots are really scary. Can I just take my clothes off again, please? Because that was so much easier. And right, and that is the truth, because of the character you're inhabiting whilst you're in all that space. It allows you to be, and that's probably why we see less men than we see women, because there's not as much character, there's not as much industry that lets you dress up and play up and do stuff that is in there. That was a very long answer, wasn't it?
Never mind. It was a lovely answer. How do people get hold of you? Can you tell us all your contact details?
Yeah, so I have a website, ganderphotography.co.uk. I have a telephone, which has a phone number, which is 07949 026 334. I have Instagram, Gander Photo and The Way You Are, and I have something new called Goose and Gander Art. And frankly, smoke signals will do just as well. As long as you want to get hold of me, you'll find me. Don't be afraid to open a conversation, is what I tell everybody. Because the first step of every journey is always a bit terrifying. I really like what you do. Can we talk about it? And I'm like, yeah, let's. And, you know, some women have a shoot within 4 or 5 weeks and some will take 5 years. But, you know, just find me. And I guess the final part of that is you can email me, julian@ganderphotography.co.uk. So all of those ways, find me, nice and easy. It's not hard.
Wonderful. And it's been wonderful meeting you, Julian, and having you on the couch with us and chatting about your particular creative field. It's been really great having you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And as you will have seen, everyone who's watching, Julian's very easy to talk to. He's got a very easy manner. So I think that if I was going to choose anybody to get in a studio with, it would be Julian.
That's not there's no texty boxes. We've got witnesses now, Melanie.
Okay, put it out there. Put it out there. But
we'll keep everybody updated. If Melanie goes for this boudoir shoot, we will tell you all. Follow us on Facebook and LinkedIn and Instagram and TikTok.
Every other social site we can find, right?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, no pressure. Oh, thank you so much for joining us, Julian. It's been absolutely terrific. It's been lovely talking to you again. And thank you, Julie. And thank you to our viewers for watching our show. But until next time, we'll see you.